My name is Madeline Carter, though almost everyone calls me Maddie. I'm 29 years old. And until 3 weeks ago, I genuinely believed I knew the man I had been dating for 2 years. Then he threw my anniversary gift into a restaurant trash can. Not metaphorically. Not emotionally. He actually dropped it into the little brass waste bin beside our table and said, loud enough for 2 neighboring couples to hear, "I don't wear cheap junk. Maddie, I deserve designer." I reached into the bin, lifted out the velvet box, wiped a smear of chocolate from its corner, and said, "There? Now neither of us has to pretend anymore." At the time, Ethan had no idea he had just discarded a $5,000 necklace. He found out the next evening. By then, it was already too late. When Ethan Blake and I first started dating, he wasn't obsessed with labels. At least, I didn't think he was. He used to spend entire Saturday mornings pulling me through flea markets and antique stores, holding up old watches and tarnished cufflinks as if they were pieces of buried treasure. "Look at the workmanship," he once told me while examining a scratched silver pocket watch. "People don't make things like this anymore." That sentence stayed with me. So when our second anniversary approached, I wanted to find him something that carried a story, something no one else would have. Something that proved I had listened to all the little things he said when he thought they didn't matter. It took me 3 months. The necklace was an authentic Art Deco piece from the late 1920s. It had been designed for a wealthy New York family and later passed through 2 generations before being sold as part of an estate collection. The chain was white gold, masculine and understated, with tiny diamonds and deep blue sapphires set into a geometric pendant. It wasn't flashy. That was the point. The estate jeweler authenticated it, cleaned it, reinforced the clasp, and provided documentation tracing its history. The final price was $5,000. That wasn't pocket change for me. I work as a project coordinator for a commercial construction company. I'm comfortable, but I don't casually spend thousands on jewelry. I saved for months, skipped a weekend trip with friends, and picked up extra assignments whenever my manager offered overtime. I thought Ethan would understand what it meant. Our anniversary dinner was at Bella Vita, a small Italian restaurant with candlelight, dark wooden booths, and soft piano music drifting through the room. Ethan wore the navy jacket I had bought him the previous Christmas. He looked handsome, relaxed, and happy, at least until I gave him the box. He opened it slowly. For half a second, his face lit up. Then his smile changed. It didn't disappear completely. It stiffened, like someone had pulled invisible strings at the corners of his mouth. "What is this?" he asked. "It's vintage," I said. "From the 20s. You remember that Art Deco exhibition we went to?" I thought. "Is it costume jewelry?" I laughed because I assumed he was joking. "No. It's white gold. The stones are real." He lifted the necklace by the chain and let it swing from his fingers. "It looks like something from a thrift store." My stomach tightened. It came from an estate jeweler. It's authenticated. The kind of thing that turns your neck green? "No. Ethan, I just told you it's real." He dropped it back into the box. I watched the pendant strike the velvet lining. "I don't understand," I said quietly. "You love vintage pieces." I liked looking at them. "Maddie, that doesn't mean I want to wear cheap junk." A woman at the next table turned slightly in our direction. I lowered my voice. "It isn't cheap. I deserve designer. Cartier. Tiffany. Something people recognize. He pushed the box across the table. Jason's girlfriend bought him a Cartier bracelet after 6 months. We've been together 2 years. And this is what you give me. My face burned. It took me 3 months to find this. And maybe you should have spent those 3 months asking what I actually wanted. He stood abruptly. I'm going to the restroom. Think about whether you're ready for a real relationship with real gifts. He turned away before I could answer. For several seconds, I stared at the empty chair across from me. A waiter approached with a water pitcher, saw my expression, and silently filled my glass. Then I noticed the brass wastebin beside our table. Ethan had tossed the box into it before walking away. Something inside me went cold. I reached down, retrieved it, closed the lid, and slipped it into my purse. Then I paid the bill. Ethan returned 10 minutes later, as though nothing unusual had happened. During the drive to his apartment, he kept talking. My friends are going to ask what you got me. What am I supposed to show them? You don't have to show them anything. That's easy for you to say. You're not the one being embarrassed. I tried to explain what it was. You should have bought something that didn't need an explanation. When we reached his building, he got out without kissing me. Thanks for dinner. I guess. I watched him walk inside. For the first time in 2 years, I didn't feel sad to see him leave. The next morning, I woke to 3 messages, still upset about last night. You embarrassed me. My friends asked about the gift, and I couldn't even show them. I didn't respond. Instead, I drove to the estate jeweler. Mr. Holloway recognized me immediately. How did your boyfriend like it? He didn't. His expression softened. I'm sorry. I'd like to return it. He examined the necklace beneath the counterlight and offered me $4,200. Deducting the authentication and restoration fees, I accepted without negotiating. Before leaving, I requested an itemized receipt showing the original $5,000 price. I drove to Ethan's apartment and used the key he had given me after our first anniversary. He wasn't home. I placed the receipt in the center of his kitchen counter, directly beneath the pendant light. Then I left. At 6:13 that evening, my phone began vibrating. 12 missed calls, 15 texts. Where is the necklace? You returned it. $5,000. Call me right now. I waited an hour before answering. You spent $5,000, Ethan demanded. Yes. I thought it was costume jewelry. You didn't ask. You threw it away. I didn't throw it away. You put it in a trash can. I was upset. You should have explained it better. I tried. There was a pause. Then his voice softened. Buy it back. No. What do you mean? No. I returned it. Then get me something equivalent. I stared through my apartment window at the traffic below. Why would I do that? Because it's our anniversary. Because you love me. I did buy you an anniversary gift. You rejected it. You're being ridiculous. No. Ethan, I'm finally paying attention. 2 days later, he appeared at my apartment and pushed past me when I opened the door. You made me look stupid, he said. You did that yourself. I didn't know how expensive it was. That's exactly the problem. He crossed his arms. I was only communicating my standards. You called my gift cheap junk. I was being honest. Then I'll be honest too. We're done. His face drained of color. You're breaking up with me over a necklace. I'm breaking up with you because you only valued it after seeing the receipt. For several seconds, he looked wounded. Then something in his eyes changed. The sadness disappeared, replaced by a cold, careful stillness. Fine, he said, walking toward the door. If that's how you want to play this? He looked back at me before leaving. But you're going to regret it. The door closed behind him. I locked it, unaware that ending the relationship would be the easiest part of what came next. For the first 2 days after Ethan left my apartment, nothing happened. No calls, no message, no dramatic apology delivered with flowers. The silence should have felt peaceful. Instead, it felt staged. Ethan had never been good at accepting embarrassment. When we argued, he didn't calm down and reconsider. He disappeared long enough to decide how the story should be retold, then returned with a version in which he had been misunderstood and everyone else had been cruel. By Thursday morning, that version had apparently been completed. I was sitting at my desk reviewing contractor invoices when my phone lit up with a message from a number I didn't recognize. Hi, Maddie. This is Connor, Ethan's friend. I know this is none of my business, but he's really struggling. He said you ended 2 years together over one comment. Could you at least hear him out? I read it twice. One comment. Not the public humiliation. Not the trash can. Not the demand for a more expensive replacement. One comment. I typed back carefully. Ethan and I are no longer together. I'm not discussing private details through his friends. Please respect that. Connor responded almost immediately. He just wants a chance to explain. He already feels terrible. I blocked the number. An hour later, Ethan's mother called. I had met Denise Blake perhaps 6 times. She had always been polite to me. But there was something assessing in the way she looked at people. She noticed shoes, watches, cars, restaurant choices. After our first dinner together, Ethan told me she had called me pleasant, but practical. I hadn't realized practical was an insult until then. I let the call go to voicemail. Maddie. Sweetheart. This is Denise. Ethan told me there was a misunderstanding about your anniversary. He's devastated. Men don't always express themselves perfectly. And I think emotions were running high. I'd hate to see both of you throw away something meaningful over jewelry. Call me back. We can all sit down together and resolve this maturely. I deleted the message. By lunchtime, Ethan had posted a photograph online. It showed a black velvet jewelry box lying open on a restaurant table. He must have taken it before throwing it away. The caption read, "Sometimes people give gifts to make themselves feel generous. Not because they understand the person receiving them." He didn't mention my name. But he didn't need to. Several mutual friends commented beneath it. You deserve to feel appreciated. Never settle. Real love listens. One person asked whether I had bought him fake jewelry. Ethan replied with a broken heart emoji. I stared at the screen until my hands began trembling. Then I took screenshots. At 6 that evening, I arrived home and found a paper shopping bag outside my apartment door. Inside were every small gift I had given Ethan over the past 2 years. A leather journal from our trip to Boston, a silver tie clip engraved with his initials, a framed photograph of us hiking in Vermont. At the bottom was a folded note. Since gifts mean more to you than people, you can have them back. For a moment, I stood in the hallway with the bag in my arms, feeling something sharp and humiliating rise in my throat. Then my neighbor's door opened. Mrs. Alvarez, a retired nurse in her 60s, looked from me to the bag. Everything okay? Yes, I said too quickly. She glanced toward the elevator. That young man was here about 20 minutes ago. The one who visits you sometimes? Ethan. He seemed angry. He asked whether you were home. A chill moved down my back. Did you let him into the building? No. Someone else must have. I thanked her and carried the bag inside. That night, I placed Ethan's key to my apartment on the kitchen counter and stared at it. We had exchanged keys 10 months earlier. At the time, it had felt intimate, adult, like proof that the relationship was moving forward. Now it looked like a threat. The following morning, I contacted my landlord and requested a lock change. He asked whether the key had been lost. No, I said. Someone I no longer trust still has it. The new lock was installed that afternoon. I also purchased a small doorbell camera. I told myself I was being cautious, not frightened, but when darkness fell, I checked the camera feed 3 times before going to sleep. At 2:17 inches the morning, my phone buzzed. The motion alert showed Ethan standing outside my door. He wore a gray sweatshirt and jeans. His hair was messy, and his face looked pale under the hallway lights. He didn't knock immediately. First, he simply stood there. Then he leaned closer to the camera. "I know you're awake," he said. I froze beneath my blanket. He tried the old key. Once, twice, a third time. When it didn't work, his expression changed. He looked directly into the camera again. "You changed the lock." I didn't respond. He knocked softly. "Maddie, open the door. I just want to talk." The knocking became louder. "We were together for 2 years. You can't erase me in 3 days." I called building security. By the time they reached my floor, Ethan was gone. The next morning, he sent an email from his work account. "I saw you change the locks. That was unnecessary and cruel. I wasn't going to hurt you. I wanted closure. You keep turning normal attempts to communicate into something sinister." I forwarded the email to a private folder I had created and named Documentation. Then I replied with one sentence, "Do not come to my home again." He answered, "So now I'm dangerous. Is that the story you're telling people?" I didn't respond. That afternoon, my manager, Celeste, asked me to step into her office. She closed the door behind me. "A man called reception, asking whether you were at work?" My stomach dropped. "Did he give a name?" "He said he was your boyfriend, and that there was a family emergency." "He's my ex-boyfriend." Celeste's expression hardened. "Do you feel unsafe?" I hesitated. That was the first time anyone had asked me directly. I don't know. It was the truth. And somehow admitting it made everything feel more real. Celeste instructed reception not to confirm my schedule to anyone. She also arranged for security to walk me to the parking garage. When I reached my car that evening, there was a white envelope tucked beneath the windshield wiper. Inside was a copy of the receipt for the necklace. Across the bottom, Ethan had written, "You wanted me to understand its value. Now I do." Beneath that was another line. "Meet me, Saturday at 7:00. Bella vita. Sam table. I'll make this right." I tore the paper in half, then stopped. Documentation. I smoothed it out, photographed it, and placed it in my glove compartment. Saturday came. I did not go to Bella Vita. Accepte patruzeci și doi. Ethan sent a photograph of the empty chair across from him. At 8:05. He sent another message. "I ordered your favorite wine." At 8:30 și 1. "You're humiliating me on purpose now." At 9:10. "I'm done begging." At 11:40 și 8. "You'll realize what you destroyed." I blocked his email address. On Sunday morning, my closest friend, Rachel, called. Her voice sounded cautious. "Ethan contacted me." I closed my eyes. Of course he did. He said, "You've been acting irrationally." He wanted me to convince you to meet him. "And what did you say?" I said no. Relief washed through me. Then Rachel added, "Maddie, there's something else." "What?" He told me the necklace wasn't really the reason you ended things. I sat down slowly. What did he say? The reason was that you've been seeing someone from work. For several seconds, I couldn't speak. He said he found messages between you and a married contractor. That's a lie. I know. No. Rachel. There isn't even anyone he could be talking about. I believe you. But he's telling people you created the necklace argument so you could leave without admitting you cheated. The room seemed to tilt. That was Ethan's real retaliation. Not shouting, not threats. A new story, one designed to make him the betrayed man and me the cold, unfaithful woman who had discarded him over nothing. By noon, 2 mutual friends had messaged asking whether the rumor was true. I replied to neither. Instead, I opened every screenshot, every email, and every camera recording. I saved them to a cloud folder and sent a copy to Rachel. Then I wrote Ethan one final message. You have contacted my home, my workplace, my friends, and my neighbors. You have attempted to enter my apartment after I ended the relationship. You are now spreading false claims about me. Do not contact me directly or indirectly again. Any further attempt will be documented and handled formally. He responded in less than a minute. Handled formally. Listen to yourself. You're acting like I'm some criminal because I'm trying to save our relationship. I didn't answer. That evening, I was preparing dinner when an unfamiliar email appeared in my inbox. The sender's name was Vanessa Reed. I recognized it immediately. Vanessa was Ethan's ex-girlfriend. They had dated for almost 3 years before I met him. According to Ethan, she had been jealous, unstable, and incapable of letting go. The message contained only 2 sentences. I heard you broke up with Ethan. There are things you need to know before he realizes I contacted you. I read Vanessa's email 3 times before I replied. My finger hovered over the keyboard longer than I wanted to admit. Every breakup has competing versions of the truth. During the 2 years Ethan and I were together, I'd heard plenty about Vanessa. According to him, she had been controlling, dramatic, and obsessed with keeping tabs on him. He claimed she'd refused to accept their breakup and had spent months trying to win him back. Until that moment, I'd believed every word. I finally typed a short response. What do you think I need to know? She answered 15 minutes later. Not over email. Public place. Your choice. Tomorrow, if possible. I almost declined. Then I remembered the late-night visits, the attempted entry into my apartment, the rumors at work. Something told me there was a reason she had reached out, after remaining silent for nearly 3 years. The next afternoon, we met in a busy coffee shop downtown. Vanessa looked nothing like the villain Ethan had described. She appeared tired more than anything else. Calm, careful, like someone who had rehearsed this conversation many times and still wasn't sure how to begin. I'm sorry, she said, as she sat down. I know this is strange. It is. I almost didn't contact you. Why now? She folded her hands around her coffee. Because one of Ethan's friends recognized me at the gym yesterday. He mentioned you'd broken up over some expensive necklace. My expression must have changed, because she nodded. That's exactly how it started with me. A chill spread through my shoulders. What do you mean? He doesn't handle rejection. I stayed silent. He doesn't scream. He doesn't hit people. That's what makes it confusing. Instead, she searched for the right words. He rewrites reality until everyone starts questioning themselves. I thought about the social media post, the rumors, the emails, the phone calls. Vanessa continued. When we broke up, he told everyone I had commitment issues. You didn't, she smiled sadly. I ended things because he opened a credit card in my name. I stared at her. What? He said we'd eventually get married. So it wasn't a big deal. My stomach tightened. He actually used your information. Yes. Did you report him? She nodded. The bank reversed everything. His parents paid the balance before charges were filed. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Finally, I asked the question that had been sitting in the back of my mind. Why didn't anyone tell me? She laughed without humor. They tried. What? Ethan always gets ahead of the story. She looked directly into my eyes. By the time someone hears another version, they've already spent months believing his. When I returned home, I didn't feel relieved. I felt manipulated. Not because Vanessa had told me something unbelievable, because it explained too much. The victim stories, the constant comparisons, the need to be admired, the inability to admit fault. For the first time since our breakup, I stopped asking myself whether I'd overreacted. It hadn't. Tuesday morning brought another surprise. Human Resources called me into a meeting. My pulse quickened as I walked upstairs. Inside sat Celeste from my department and a representative from HR. The representative smiled politely. We just wanted to check on you. I frowned. Why? We received an anonymous email claiming you're emotionally unstable and creating conflict with someone outside the company. My heart dropped. The representative continued. The sender suggested it might eventually affect workplace safety. I didn't need anyone to tell me who had written it. I know exactly who sent that. Celeste nodded. I thought you might. They allowed me to explain everything from the anniversary dinner to the apartment visits. When I finished, HR simply asked, "Do you have documentation?" I almost laughed. "I have a folder." I opened my laptop. Screenshots, emails, camera footage, voicemails, dates, times, every interaction. By the end of the meeting, the HR representative leaned back. Thank you. That's it. That's it. She closed her notebook. If anyone contacts this company again regarding your personal life, it will be forwarded directly to our legal department. I hadn't realized how tightly I was holding my breath until then. That evening, Rachel came over carrying takeout. Neither of us mentioned Ethan for nearly half an hour. Eventually, she looked at me. You seem calmer. I think I finally understand what's happening. And I keep expecting him to realize it's over. Rachel nodded. But that's not the game. No. She waited. It's never been about getting me back. What is it about? He needs to be the person who wasn't rejected. The words surprised even me. Once I'd said them aloud, everything fit together. The expensive necklace, the social media post, the rumors, the fake emergency calls, the guilt, the pressure. Every move was designed to erase the fact that I'd chosen to leave at 8:43 that night. My doorbell camera sent another alert. Ethan. He wasn't alone. His mother stood beside him. Denise folded her arms while Ethan knocked. Maddie. She called through the door. No response. We're only here to talk. Still, nothing. Denise sighed loudly enough for the camera microphone to capture it. I don't know why you're making this so difficult. Ethan looked exhausted. You know I love you. Silence. I bought something for you. My eyebrows lifted. Bought something. He reached into his car and carried a large wrapped box toward the apartment entrance. He placed it carefully outside my door. We'll leave this here. The two of them walked away. I waited another 20 minutes before opening the door. The package was surprisingly heavy. Inside sat an expensive espresso machine. A handwritten note rested on top. See, I can change. Let's stop fighting and remember who we are together. No apology. No acknowledgement of everything that had happened. Just another expensive object meant to erase weeks of manipulation. I photographed everything. Then I called the delivery company, listed on the receipt, after explaining that the gift was unsolicited and unwanted. They arranged to retrieve it the following morning. I wanted nothing in my apartment that could become another bargaining chip. The next afternoon, my phone rang again. Unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Maddie. It was Ethan. How did you get this number? You blocked the others. I asked you not to contact me. I saw the delivery truck. I returned the machine. His breathing became uneven. Why? Because gifts don't replace accountability. It was $10,000. I don't care. You didn't even keep it. No. You really don't love me anymore. The question lingered between us. I answered honestly. I don't love the person you've become. A long silence followed. Then, his voice changed. Cold. Measured. If I can't fix this... He stopped himself. My pulse quickened. If you can't fix what? Another silence. Finally, he said quietly. You'll see. The line went dead. I stood frozen in my kitchen. My phone still pressed against my ear. It wasn't what he'd said that frightened me. It was how calm he'd sounded when he said it. For the first time since the breakup, I wasn't wondering what Ethan would do next. I was wondering how far he was willing to go to avoid losing. I barely slept that night. Ethan's final words echoed through my mind over and over. You'll see. It wasn't a threat, shouted in anger. It was quieter than that, more confident, as if he already had a plan. The next morning, I forwarded every recent message to the attorney, whose name HR had recommended. We spoke briefly over the phone, and after reviewing my documentation, she gave me simple advice. Don't meet him alone. I wasn't planning to. Good. Keep every message, every package, every call. If he escalates again, you'll have a very clear record. That was exactly what I intended to do. For the first time in weeks, I stopped wondering whether I was overreacting. Professionals who had never met Ethan were looking at the same evidence I was. None of them thought this was normal. 3 days passed without a single message. No calls, no emails, no surprise visits. The silence felt almost unnatural. Rachel remained skeptical. I don't trust it. Neither do I. What do you think he's doing? I stared into my coffee. Planning. Friday afternoon. My receptionist transferred a visitor request to my office. There's someone here asking to see you. I'm not expecting anyone. He says it's about your anniversary gift. Every muscle in my body tightened. It's not Ethan. The receptionist added quickly. It's an older gentleman. Curious. I walked downstairs. Standing in the lobby was Mr. Holloway, the estate jeweler. He smiled politely. I hope I'm not interrupting your work. Not at all. Is everything okay? I thought you should know something. He handed me a small envelope. Inside was a receipt. Not mine. A newer one. The necklace. Purchased again. My eyes widened. Someone bought it. He nodded. 2 days ago. Ethan, I'm afraid I can't discuss my customers. He paused. But I can tell you this. His expression became sympathetic. The buyer paid substantially more than the original price. Ms. stomach sank. How much? Just over $9,000. Almost double. I closed my eyes. He actually did it. I suspected you'd want to know. Mr. Holloway hesitated. He insisted the necklace belonged with the woman who originally purchased it. The woman? Me. I thanked him after he left. But the entire conversation left me unsettled. Rachel's prediction had been right. Ethan hadn't disappeared. He'd simply changed strategies. The package arrived the following Monday. No return address. Inside was the familiar black velvet box. The necklace rested exactly where I had first seen it months earlier. Every sapphire catching the afternoon sunlight. Beneath it lay a handwritten letter. I finally understand what you were trying to give me. I was proud. I was selfish. This necklace deserves to stay with the woman who loved enough to choose it. Please let me apologize in person. One conversation. That's all I'm asking. There was no signature. There didn't need to be one. My phone rang less than a minute later. Ethan. You got it. I did. I told you I'd make things right. No. Silence. You bought back a necklace. I bought back your trust. No. Ethan. My voice stayed calm. You bought an object. I admitted I was wrong. You admitted you were wrong after weeks of blaming me. I panicked. You spread rumors. I was hurt. You contacted my workplace. I wanted your attention. You tried entering my apartment. I needed closure. You used other people to pressure me. They were trying to help. Every answer followed the same pattern. Excuse. Minimize. Redirect. Never genuine accountability. Finally, I interrupted him. Why did you really buy the necklace? He hesitated. Because I love you. No. Another silence. Then I asked softly. If I'd accepted your first apology, would you have spent $9,000? No. If I'd answered your calls, would you have tracked the necklace down? No. If I'd taken you back after the first week, how would any of this have happened? He didn't answer. Because we both knew the truth. The necklace had never been about love. It had become a competition. He needed to prove he could undo my decision. Needed to prove that persistence could erase consequences. I'm not keeping it. I said, What? I'm returning it. You can't. I can. I bought it for you. You bought it for yourself. His breathing became uneven. You don't mean that. I do. I've changed. No. How can you say that? Because you're still trying to solve an emotional problem with an expensive purchase. He whispered. What else am I supposed to do? I answered honestly. Accept my answer. That afternoon I drove back to Mr. Holloway's shop. He looked almost amused when I walked in carrying the velvet box. I had a feeling I'd see this necklace again. So did I. He carefully inspected it. I can buy it back. I figured. After completing the paperwork, he shook his head. This piece certainly has an unusual history. It deserves a quieter future. I think its next owner will appreciate it. So do I. As I walked toward the door, he called after me. For what it's worth. I turned. You never seemed attached to the necklace itself. I wasn't. You were attached to what it represented. I smiled sadly. Exactly. 2 weeks later, everything became surprisingly quiet. No more anonymous emails. No more unexpected packages. No more visits. Through mutual friends, I eventually learned what had happened. Ethan's parents had discovered how much money he'd borrowed to repurchase the necklace. They insisted he repay every dollar himself. Several friendships had cooled after people learned the full story instead of the version he'd been telling. Even the rumors about my supposed affair disappeared once. No evidence ever surfaced. The narrative he had worked so hard to construct slowly collapsed under the weight of facts. One evening, months later, my phone buzzed with a text from an unfamiliar number. I finally understand. Nothing else. No request. No apology. No invitación. Just 6 words. I stared at the screen for a long moment. Then I deleted the message without replying. Not because I hated him, because every meaningful conversation between us had already happened. He simply hadn't listened when it mattered. A month after that, I stopped by Mr. Holloway's shop to browse. The necklace sold again. He told me, Really? He smiled. The buyer asked whether it had an interesting history, and I said every meaningful piece carries one. I couldn't help smiling. That's true. As I stepped back onto the sidewalk, the autumn breeze caught my hair. For the first time in months, I realized I wasn't thinking about Ethan anymore. I wasn't replaying the dinner, or the arguments, or the rumors, or the endless attempts to change my mind. I was thinking about the future, about how love isn't measured by receipts, grand gestures, or expensive apologies. It's measured by respect, by listening, by believing someone the first time they tell you who they are. Looking back, the necklace had never been the lesson. The lesson was that when someone values winning more than understanding, no amount of love can build a healthy future with them. I walked to my car feeling lighter than I had in a long time. This chapter of my life wasn't ending because Ethan finally accepted the breakup. It was ending because I no longer needed his acceptance to move forward.